This is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We are talking about the finale of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 10, The Last Generation.
Data, what the hell are you doing?
I've got this, Geordi.
Data, it's impossible.
Data?
Trust me.
Data, I said no!
Statistically, probability, yes. It's nearly impossible. But my gut tells me I should do this.
Your gut?
Yes.
You've got to be sure, Data.
Please, everyone, just trust me.
All right. We go with Data's gut.
Here goes nothing.
Wait, what do you mean nothing?
Hang on!
Welcome back, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. This is TV Podcast Industries. We are back talking about the final ever episode of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 10, The Last Generation. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
Resistance is futile because I am Chris.
Well done, Chris. Well done. This is the final time we're talking about Picard. How weird is that?
I know, but good job is I am convinced now that we will definitely be getting another show with the
Spoilers!
with the new crew aboard the Enterprise, the new Enterprise.
Big spoilers. Yes, we are talking full spoilers for this episode. Hope you've watched it.
End credit sequence as well, yes.
Well, another piece of good news. We are currently away on holidays at the moment. We have left Ireland. We are away on our big holidays until May. And with huge thank you to Paramount Plus, we were able to get the episode a bit early. So we're recording our episode a couple of days before the rest of the world gets to see it, thankfully. And that allows us to put it out on time for the episode's release. But it does mean we have no feedback in here, which is okay.
It's okay this time.
Do you know why it's okay as well?
Because we've got our roundup episodes.
Exactly.
So we can cover the episode 10 feedback in that.
Yeah. And the other thing that we'll cover in there, of course, is our final Picard 10 Forward pub quiz. We will, of course, give out our 10th question of the pub quiz later on in the episode. And if you've been gathering together all the questions and answers for this season, you'll be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Star Trek Picard goodies. We'll be announcing that in our wrap-up session, which will happen after we get back from our holidays in the middle of May. That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Excellent. Well, let's get into our discussion about the finale of Star Trek Picard.
Derek, what are some of the episode details? Fire, number one.
For the final time, this show was created by Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Christian Bayer, and Alex Kurtzman. And this episode was written and directed by showrunner for this season, Terry Matalas, so writer and director credit on this one.
Excellent stuff. Yeah. Yes.
Good, huh?
Very good. Good to see. It again further supports our theory.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of the showrunner writing or maybe directing or doing both for maybe the start and the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely the guiding hand on this show, whether he's got the major writing credit or not. This is his vision put onto screen. So great to see that for the final episode.
Definitely.
Yeah. You can see his hand through this, and kind of you can see the things that were started at the simple lines in the beginning were pulled back in the end here.
Exactly. So, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the final episode of Star Trek Picard, The Last Generation?
Sure. With Admiral Picard back in charge of the Enterprise D, he and his crew search for the source of the Borg signal that has taken control of Starfleet. They identify a Borg cube hidden in the gases of Jupiter and track Jack Crusher at the center of it all. As the away team boards the cube to stop the signal and save the galaxy, they separate with Riker and Worf navigating the vessel to deactivate the broadcast beacon, while John Luke follows Beverly Crusher's guidance to find their son. Meanwhile, Seven, Raffi, and some of the crew retake the Titan from the Borg-controlled younger crew, trapping them in the transporter room. When they learn the Enterprise D is battling the Borg, the Titan takes on the fleet to fight for what it has taken from them. Aboard the cube, they discover the Borg drones are dead. The only life sign is Jack, who is under the control of the twisted Borg Queen. Unable to extract him from the coercive control, Picard plugs back into the collective and convinces Jack to leave. As Riker and Worf locate the beacon, Data steers the Enterprise through the interior of the cube and destroys it along with the Queen, ending the signal to the young members of Starfleet and the attack on Earth. Picard, Riker and Worf are beamed off the Borg cube just in time. With the attack on Earth averted, now Admiral Crusher uses her experience to remove all traces of the organic Borg technology from all of Starfleet, and also uncover any hidden changelings. Seven meets with Admiral Tuvok, who reveals that her former Captain Shaw had recommended her for captain on her last evaluation, and she's given command of the Titan. A year later, Jack Crusher takes his place aboard Captain Seven's ship. In honour of Picard and his crew, it has been renamed the Enterprise 1701G, and as they exit space dock, the crew are ready to begin their own legacy. While Picard, Riker, LaForge, Beverly, Troy, Data and Worf play a long-delayed game of poker in 10 Forward, Jack Crusher gets a visit from the omnipotent Q. He tells him Picard's trials are over, but his have only just begun.
I think we got everything that we could have possibly wanted in this last episode.
I think
and
so.
And the kitchen sink.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think John did describe it as a little bit Return of the King from Lord of the Rings, with many endings to tie up everything to do with the series, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I have to say, I absolutely loved the ride. Mm-hmm. Don't care about so many endings. It was good to see where they all are. Like, I love them playing the game of poker in 10 Forward, and absolutely. Just it really hanging on it as well, which I really liked. With the credits and so on, I thought it was really good.
Absolutely.
Although I was wondering whether they were actually having a game of poker or whether they were just shuffling a little bit and chucking a few chips down every now and then. I think it was more the latter.
I think it might have been.
But, that's what you have to do.
But it was fab. No, really good. And all fans of The Next Generation always used to love those moments when you got the crew on a bit of downtime chatting to each other over a game of poker. So, and it used to be the bridge crew without Picard. He eventually joined in with the team. So lovely to kind of end on that note with the group.
Yeah.
I very much felt like Captain America Steve Rogers going, I understood that reference.
There you go. Excellent.
Like, I got that one. I got that. There's another one. Oh yeah. It was the nostalgic fan service that, as a way to close. It's not even, very much as you said, John, it's Return of the King. It's not nostalgia and fan service for just cheap sakes. It was targeted and written in a way as a thank you to the fans for the years. And again, if you haven't followed The Next Generation for 20 odd years, you're okay, because it's still good, just narrative.
Yeah.
Kind of good written scenes.
Exactly. And all episodes available now on Paramount Plus. They didn't pay me to say that, I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, you can go back and watch everything over there. So.
But I really do like the little eye and the nod forward with potentially a 7 of 9 series.
Well, yes.
With special advisor Jack Crusher as well as Raffi.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'll talk about that as we get into our points. We always start off with our small point, our small moment from the episode.
Make it so, number one.
And usually a quote from the episode that we like to talk about. Who wants to start off with their quote from the episode that they enjoyed? John, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll kick off. The quote I've got is Geordie's quote where he says, "We're out of time. Let's hope they have a little left." I just really, really enjoyed this, just given what they realize about the beacon that they have to destroy, with it being, Death Star-like right in the heart of the cube. I thought it was a really nice line delivered by Geordie in that moment as the captain, with the pain of not only himself and Data with the loss of friends and former comrades and colleagues, but you have Beverly with the loss of, her former lover, John Luke, and her son, and Deanna Troi with her husband, Will. So I just really liked it. I thought it was really poignant for some reason. It could have almost been delivered offhand, but I liked that, it just, we're out of time. We have to take that tough decision. Yeah. But as always with Star Trek, let's hope they have a little left, is that little bit of hope, which, we have to hang our hopes on ourselves.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
And it does make it great though, doesn't it? Because we come into this season going, this is the final season of Picard. It's probably going to happen that we're going to lose some major characters here in the final episode. And it was that moment when you go, there's a sacrifice here. Maybe this time that 1 minute will be enough to get them off the board.
Exactly. Real dread there. And, I thought it was going to be TNG, G standing for the next genocide, ultimately. I thought like literally half of them were going to get wiped out here. Yeah. So I really liked that. And I think just one other point, which kind of just comes after that, is I just loved seeing Geordi in the captain's chair, and I loved it after the events around the Borg cube, I guess as they're going back to Earth, where it's Data, Geordi, and Worf in those 3 command seats. That was really good. And to top it all off with Worf having a little sleep, having dozed off because of all the effort that had been put into his away mission.
Yeah, all tuckered out after a hard day's fight. Right.
I recognise that.
I was going to say, if any of our listeners want to know what it's like every now and again when the 3 of us get together late into the night, it is essentially John is Worf asleep in the corner. Derek is essentially Data sitting there going, I've just steered the ship for the day, I'm taking some time, and me just giggling. So there you go. I am Geordi.
Exactly.
I'm usually blind as well. There you go.
Blind, drunk, more like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There you go. Chris, how about you? What's your moment of the episode?
I'm going to take another Worf and Riker related. It is you've had a phaser in there the whole time. I was like, that is just peak Klingon, peak Worf, and peak Riker, just like berating him, going like, what the? Cause it's just fun. It's like they've battled, they've been fighting, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to take the easy way. It's too enjoyable to cut them.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, swords are fun. Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a fun way. The only additional bit, which I'm really interested, was like, he lifted the weight of the sword, and it was like dragging him down. I'm like, oh yeah, like you forget like the bat'leth that they used to fight with was also super heavy. And it was just like, oh yeah, it's not just a sword, like it's Klingons are super strong in comparison to humans. Yeah. So you just, again, a really small nod that I went, I get that reference. I remember it. Yeah. And also just a nice comedic line just to kind of soften what's going into a very narrative heavy kind of emotional beginning and kind of middle of the episode. So yeah, just a really nice quick line.
Yeah, excellent. They were great comic relief throughout this episode. That was also my line coming from the interaction between Riker and Worf. First one we see on screen where Picard's saying, right, I'm going down to the ship now, and Riker's going, you're not going alone, and Worf responds with, I'll make it a threesome, and Riker just instantly going, do you even hear yourself speak? Sometimes. Great moments throughout the episode. There's some great banter between the two of them. They work really well together. As the number one, usually captain, in charge of everything going on, and the slightly overly aggressive, will we say pacifist aggressive? Is that the way you call Worf? And how he handles situations, but the two of them together working really well here. So loved that moment. So I will make it a threesome.
It's really interesting. Actually, I thought that line was great, and I actually thought Riker had a whole rake of lines through this, which I just thought were really poignant. Like a bit like with Geordie's, I really liked it where, you know, him and Worf go to save Picard, despite the chain reaction that's about to go happen, sort of effectively taking themselves out of transporter range of Enterprise. And I like it where he just says, you know, I owe him a lifetime. The least I can do is spare a minute.
So 1 minute, yeah.
So you know, he had some really good stuff there, mixed in. So I really enjoyed, Riker's lines here in this episode.
I'll echo that. So the one that got me choked was, and we'll talk more about the actual bit in this later in our next few points, but the line he says to Deanna, where he's kind of just saying goodbye to himself, to her, and she just picks it up. But when he says, "We'll see you," when he talks about his dead son and him, "We'll see you," in later, and you're just like, "Oh God damn right!" In like just, and they use that as a narrative. Like the worst part is like they use that so well because they use it as a connection and like to move the plot even and connect. I was just like, that's just a goodbye line.
Yeah.
That should be just a thank you so much, so long, and thanks for all the fish. And they use it as a way to actually move the story. And I was just, and the line is beautiful, delivered amazingly.
Absolutely. And it also connects to the last time we saw Riker almost losing his life, unable to make a communication, unable to record anything to Imzadi, to Deanna, to say his final goodbye. Here he has the words. He's reconnected with her. He has the ability to say something to her. It's beautiful moment. Really good.
Yeah.
I think as well, I'm sure, this is my working theory anyway, is just simply the fact that this group of people, actors, spent so much time together, seemingly all have really healthy relationships with one another. Even though they may not see them so much, it just echoes through these episodes of, you know, all that sentiment. And it's almost something that the byproduct of that means that, and this has happened all the way through the 3 seasons, those moments where they meet with people from the next generation have felt really, really just genuine as well. And you really got that sense between Picard and Riker, you know, oozing through from Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes. So it was really good. Like even just at the end where they just have, you know, it's a bit of a hug, a tap on the shoulder, and it feels properly emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
which has been the big benefit all season this season, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Some great lines, some great moments. Those are our top lines from the episode. Let's go on to our medium moments.
Implement the Omega Directive immediately.
So yes, our medium moments from the episode. John, do you want to kick us off with your medium moment, your Omega Directive?
Absolutely. It's Deanna Troy's handbrake turn in the Enterprise D.
So cool.
Oh, I love it. I loved it. I loved her joyriding, sort of just giving that sort of wiggle of the Enterprise D's tailpipes as she comes to the rescue to save her man, Will Riker. I just really liked it. I was not expecting it, and actually, I mean, it's completely outrageous, but it's just a great moment to me as they look up because the ceiling of, you know, whatever floor they're on with, in the Borg Queen's antechamber is kind of ripping off because of this chain reaction after destroying the beacon. And you just see the Enterprise D do a great big handbrake turn, you know, come screeching to a halt as, they pull them out with the transporter to save Will, Worf, Picard, and Jack. So I really liked that a lot. I just like the fact that, you know, we hear Data, you know, the shockwave is kind of interfering with the sensors, can't lock on to the life signs down there. And again, it's that moment, as you were just mentioning, where Will is effectively just projecting that I'll be there with my son waiting for you, you know, we'll see you soon. And that is sensed through the emotional waves that a Betazoid can can pick up. And I love that it was Deanna here, and she just races over to the other Helm's console and takes the Enterprise D for a spin. I mean, because as well, it was just, I guess, just the focus, because it's been set up that, Data is taking it through because the computer can't really find a way, and he's like, I can do this, it's in my gut. And then Deanna taking over in this moment is pure gut and emotion.
Exactly.
And yeah, that image will forever stay with me of the Enterprise D being ridden like a rude boy by Deanna.
It's so good.
You could see her pimping it out. So pimp my spaceship,
But that's it. I guess the Enterprise D runs much more on emotion than any other ship in the fleet, right? Because it's probably been used by these characters so many times, this crew so many times, so it responds to them a bit more. Like, you're right that scene is fantastic, but I do love Data's scene beforehand, showing off his flight skill. Again, it's kind of opposite to the way you would have previously had Data. Everybody would trust him to make the moves that only a computer could make. And what he's saying here is, I'm much more than that now. My gut feels I can absolutely make this trip in amongst the Borg ship to get to this point. I thought it was fantastic. There's absolutely echoes of the Millennium Falcon going through the Death Star 2 on its bomber run in Return of the Jedi. No problems with that at all.
No,
steal
absolutely.
from the best and make it as cool as this. No problems.
Absolutely.
I watch it every time.
100%. For me, this traversal through the cube, which again is a cube. We weren't sure if it was a city last time. But yeah, definitely it's just a big cube with a lot of antenna. The traversal through looked fantastic.
Yeah.
They spent the money here on the VFX. And like, even that bombing run done by Crusher.
Oh, yes.
Like, that was spectacular. Like, I haven't seen something like this in a long time, because they gave a majority of each of the characters who are essentially just on a starship piloting it a specific task to get them to the next stage.
Exactly.
And it's essentially like showing again how they've now working as a crew, running together as a crew, and they fall back on those gut feelings and beliefs on each other. But Deanna, just as you said, that like handbrake turn in the Starship looks brilliant. Great. The one thing I was like, I always thought the Enterprise was bigger, and it looked bigger in later bits, but I think it was just that it's like, if anyone understands Father Ted references, this starship is up close. This starship is far away.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just looked a bit smaller than I expected. And then I'm like, oh yes, so the ceiling is gone and now we're looking up as if this was essentially where our moon is.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And you're just like, oh yeah.
It is a big ship, but it is interesting. I know John was mentioning that last week when you compare it against the other ships that are in Starfleet. At the moment, it looks very sleek and small, and in comparison to the, what did you call them, Swall ships last week?
Swall chunky ships.
John's favourite new word of this year.
Yes. I always thought it was like, in this scene, it looked like a Defiant. It looked like the Defiant size in comparison to, say, a Voyager.
It's basically a runabout,
Yes. But overall, look, this was an amazing scene, and I'm glad the way they did this, especially with it stemming to a degree from Riker and his connection. And again, that, Derek, you called it out. It was the connection scene to, again, each episode actually gave us something that culminated in this.
Exactly.
Again, why I'm very happy with the narrative and how that played out.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And I will have to call out Beverly Crusher's excellent line after doing the carpet bombing and phaser attack on the Borg cube. I love that everybody just stops and looks at her, kind of going, you were the Doctor. And she kind of goes, a lot has happened in the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Really enjoyed that.
She's a genocidal monster now.
She's learned some things, let's say.
She's learned some tricks and new skills for sure. I think as well, I really enjoyed seeing the shields around the Enterprise D as well. Just like on its escape from the cube as it's blowing up, but also
cool, actually,
as Beverly is doing this this bombing run and firing away, just the sort of that oval protective shield around the Enterprise D, I thought looked really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason, whether it's because they're kind of using the old way of showing the shields like they did back in the 90s.
Maybe.
You know, in the same way that the transporter beam for them, it looks just the same as it did in the show.
Yeah.
And I know they've changed it up, at least for like Discovery and stuff like that, in terms of how it looks. So whether it's just because they're kind of keeping I guess the brand of TNG shield around the Enterprise D, but it just looked really cool.
I think it just felt to me like it's something that I wouldn't have thought about unless I saw it on screen, that of course the shield's going to protect them from this fireball coming in after them. Yeah. But the fact that you see the barrier that's protecting them as they're flying away, and you don't have anybody go shouting out shields to 30% or whatever they usually shout when you see the shields on screen. It's just really thoughtful. Everybody's on top of their game when they're doing these scenes, because they know how important they are, and they know how much fun it is for all of us fans to watch those moments. So great stuff. Yes, Deanna's handbrake save. Great first points. How about yourself, Chris? What's your medium moment from the episode?
I'm going to talk about some amazing scenes and kind of graphics to something not so much, but a very poignant moment. I'm going to talk about Picard plugs back in and saves his son and the galaxy. This emotional kind of resonance that we've talked about, kind of how this was built. Picard essentially trying to reason with Jack while he is plugged in, and he is essentially full board. And Jack is not Jack anymore. He's not, he is Vox. He looks like Locutus, as Locutus did back in the day.
At least they allowed him to keep his hair.
Yes, exactly. That's true. They could have shaved it off, but it would have been more fun. Bald cap. But we do so we see that's not working. We see the usual kind of we need to push it through. And then you see something which I wasn't expecting, which was Picard making that self-sacrifice again, which I should have. Again, should have seen it. Yeah. But he's like, I have a son to save. Yeah. And plugs back into the collective. Yeah. And basically, assimilates himself using the kind of the connection, the wire back in, and you see the black lines form.
Yeah, that was cool.
The same way we did back in the day. And I was like so interested to see that as a trigger, because his whole thing is he never wanted to be touching the Borg again.
Exactly.
So he's making the sacrifice. And then we got some cheese.
Okay. Yeah.
In this moment between him and Jack, which I'm fine with that. It's like some cheesy dialogue when you're trying to convey emotion between a newly found father and son. I'm always going to be here with you, blah, 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 blah. I get it. It just got ham-fisted because I did I tried to do the calculations. Picard's known about Jack Crusher for the guts of 4 days.
About that, yeah. About
that now. Yeah. Since he's like, oh, that you're Jack. He's introduced to Jack. Oh, everything's going to hell. Oh, you're my son. Oh, I just rush. So you're like, he's come to all this realization, I will do anything. I'm like, okay. What if your son was a complete a-hole? Jack's not. Luckily, Jack's not. Yeah. But you're not going to have that huge. So some of the emotional outpouring from Picard's dialogue was very ham-fisted and cheesy, but I get why they did it. Their Shakespearean level kind of dialogue from these two actors who overall it portrays well. When they are performing this, you feel this connection between this father and son. Yeah. It was just quite... I liked it, but again, it was but it was very Matrix-esque, i.e. the very green Borg's atmosphere behind them, and I was like, oh, you could have put them in 10 forward, back into the pub where they were when they had on the holodeck. You could have done something more like that versus fully green screen.
I like this. I'll tell you why in a second, but none of us are parents here. I want to stress that. I have heard from parents it takes about 30 seconds of looking at your child for the first time, and then you know how much you love them. So 3 or 4 days take quite a long time. So maybe when one of us becomes a parent, we can come back and confirm whether that's true or not. How about that? Well, but I know what you mean, Chris. There is some really interesting dialogue. There's some good moments in here. What I did love is how it connects back to what we'd seen throughout the season. Remember, there's a great moment earlier on in the season when Jack is remembering the time that Picard pushed him away by saying his family is Starfleet. We have Picard returning to that moment saying, I thought since I had this hole in my life, I would fill it up with Starfleet, and now I've realized the thing I was missing is having a son like you in my life. You know, I thought that was quite a good tie-up with why he's coming to this realization now, and why when Jack saw him, he was saying, Starfleet's my family. I thought that was quite a well-written moment. Yeah.
I mean, I really quite enjoyed it. Like, I kind of liked the green because it was, I guess it's just trying to visualize what the collective looks like.
Yeah.
I think,
but also, remember, it's Jack's dream was the red tentacles that were coming out representing all the connections. So these green tentacles, effectively light tentacles that he's seeing, are similar to what he was seeing in that hallway in the vision or in the dream that he was having. So it's
in
another
a different way, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of more waves, and I like how Jack describes it. You know, it's the waves of the whole around me, but he says through me and so on. So I kind of liked that, and I thought like the line that kind of swung it for me was right at the end where Picard just says, and I think to the point of 30 minutes for a newborn, is that it's because you've changed me.
Yes.
So even though it's 4 days, even though it feels like potentially there's a lot of heavy lifting here, it is that like we were saying when Picard got angry because Jack didn't want to just kind of have that father-son relationship. It was almost like he was annoyed, and it was like, to hell with it, So it was that felt really good, and him kind of going in and hugging Jack, that ultimately then Jack remembering all those different moments that over the short period of time, because even though it's been 4 days, Jack almost died as well. So not only did he find out that he was, a father, he almost lost and suddenly was no longer a father, So it's kind of been through a fair amount of stuff. Yeah. So I did kind of like this, and I thought it was a good way of making that emotional connection, because if it was just simply unplugging Jack, and as the Borg Queen says, he has to choose to leave,
or else he's going to die.
Otherwise, he's going to die.
Yeah.
So that he had to go in.
Yeah.
So the skeptic could simply, say that Picard is also, like Patrick Stewart, a damn fine actor. He's making a play.
Exactly.
Making a play.
Yeah. No, look, it worked in the culmination of 10 episodes. Like, I was happy with how they did it. Again, it's just heavy dialogue. But again, it's good actors. Like, it just felt like you could put these two now, and this is a compliment for me, you could put them on stage in the West End, just black around them, and just 2 spotlights, and you could have that exact same conversation without all the makeup and drama, and it would be still be resonant.
Yeah.
It's just
make sure the spotlights have green lights in them, and you're grand.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff.
But so that's my moment for this.
Yeah. My only question about that moment is, does Picard have to wear scarves or cravats from now on for the big hole that's left in his neck after the cable he plugged in? It seemed quite easy to plug it in, and Jack was not very careful pulling the cables back out afterwards, was he?
It felt as though Jack ripped that out of him.
Jean-Luc was struggling trying to get it back out, and it just got ripped back out from Jack. So maybe he may be wearing cravats from now on back on Chateau Picard.
Yeah, but Derek, what's your medium moment?
I want to kind of talk a little bit about the other side of this. The Borg, their time is over, is my medium moment. So, yes, of course, Picard coming in and saving Jack is the big moment here, but I like the Borg, and I wanted to have a quick comment on what's happening with the Borg themselves. So this is the Borg Queen that we saw back in First Contact, the movie. This is that Borg Queen, voiced again by Alice Krige, as we mentioned last week. But a very different looking Borg Queen that we've got here.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the bigger elements, which is called out very early on as they go through the ship, is how few Borg drones there are aboard the ship. Riker saying, a ship of this size should be thousands of drones walking around, or at least charging up or in stasis in their pods. What we realize, or what they realize quite quickly, is that the Borg Queen has been feeding off the Borg drones that are there, keeping herself alive, which is why she has become twisted into this being that looks so different to the Queen that we've seen in the past. So that I thought was it made her seem even more brutal, what she's willing to do here for.
Yeah, and very Geiger-esque as well.
Oh, yeah.
Much more so. I mean, there's always been an element of that, like with Alien.
H.R. Giger's.
H.R. Geiger's sort of design of the aliens, just with the, it being so dark, lots of tubes and piping and so on, but certainly with it going across her face.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really, really effective. And I like the idea that, as she says, you sent us poisoned to the edge of space, where we withered and began to starve, and the cries of my children began to fade. And I loved when she says, but then the voice of Jack Crusher amplifies, and this plan. She's certainly no fan anymore of Locutus either. So I really like this warping of effectively this banishment that's happened, and I like the fact that in a sense, you can see why there is that, alliance between the Borg and the Changelings here, that they would work together because of just that bitterness, to an entire organization in the Federation, and I think more specifically for the Borg Queen because of Locutus. Yeah,
absolutely. And I suppose that's always been her mission, was to get Locutus back into the Borg. And now I love her line about it's no longer about assimilation, it's about evolution. That idea that she's now moving on with Jack because he gives different abilities now to the Borg than Locutus would have done, and they can come back, they can rise again after they destroy anybody that doesn't conform to this new version of the Borg, this organic version of the Borg. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, they do discuss what happened with the Changelings and what happened with them. So it was a deal that was struck between them. No threat. I think one of our listeners was asking about what the threat was for the Changelings to join them. There's no threat. It's that the two of them are on the same wavelength. What's happened to them because of Starfleet? They've lost an entire generation, I think she says, to Starfleet. So that means their goals are aligned and they work together to fulfill this plan effectively. So I thought that was so interesting. And again, as I say, brutal and very threatening. Once again, when the Borg are on form, they are the most threatening beings in all of Star Trek. So loved them. Really, really good.
Agree. For me, I agree completely. Like, I'm okay with how this ends, the Borg.
Yes.
Like, this is a fitting end for the Queen, who we've seen in multiple episodes, a film.
Yeah.
The different variations of the Borg and the Borg Queen for this, for Picard.
Absolutely. And also for Voyager, a very big villain in Voyager as well. So the character has been around a very long time. And sometimes with those kind of characters in sci-fi, particularly when they come back often, I will give the example of Daleks and Doctor Who. When they come back often, it's very difficult to make them threatening. So that's why I think this works so well. She's effectively finally abandoned an old plan and gone, I've got a new plan here, and it's a much more devastating plan than you think it is. The plan is we take everybody under 25, or whatever the equivalent is in an alien species, and everybody else is fodder and meat and dead. That's it. I thought it was really, really good. But to have that moment with Jack when he finally extricates himself from the collective as the ship is blowing and going, that's it, your time, the Borg's time is over. I thought it was a great final moment there.
Is it though? So this is the question. I have to ask the question. Do you think that's it?
No.
Now we know about the Borg on the wall, the Watchers on the wall, and Borgatti. Fine, that's a set. They're a separate collective.
There.
Like, we're putting them out. This Borg, which seemingly is the same Borg from the Delta Quadrant, from this quadrant, the one who have been the thorn in Picard's side and the thorn in, like, is this the end? Because the only thing I didn't see was I was expecting like a twitchy hand in a post credit or something to kind of leave it open, because pretty much that everything got destroyed.
Yes.
This
Definitely.
seemingly is the last cube that came through a transwarp corridor
Into Jupiter.
into Jupiter
Yeah,
from
like
another
that's Jupiter.
like
So
point of space.
So last week we'd mentioned that it looks like it was a nebula that the Borg cube was in, but I mentioned there was some comment from Terry Mattis on Twitter that not a nebula. It is. You'll find out next week. So this week we find out it is the gases of Jupiter that they're in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do I believe it's the end for the Borg? I believe it's written that way. Absolutely. This is the end of the Borg from the Next Generation. Do I believe
Yes.
there's not a writer out there that's writing Star Trek that will bring the Borg back in the future? Absolutely not. They will be brought back at some point, whether it's in a book, a comic, or in a future television series. But I believe the arc that's been created here of the Borg being the biggest, villains of Star Trek The Next Generation and ending them here at the end of Picard is a great arc to close out that big storyline and those great villains in the show. So if somebody brings them back, I am certain they'll do a great job writing how you would bring the Borg Collective back into it, whether you look at their origins or whether you look at something completely different. I'm sure there's a writer out there that can do it. So I'm saying yes to the show, ending them here, but there, of course, is a possibility they'll come back at Sci-Fi after all.
We said the exact same thing about another certain character who died last season.
Yes, we did.
Well, that
We
is
were
true.
like, oh yeah, no, it was fitting end, it was great. They'll probably come back. And it's like, yep, there you go.
Exactly.
Dead
but
people come back all the time. I mean, even
It's
like
true.
Palpatine. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Over on the other galaxy.
Star
Yes.
Galaxy. Yeah, cool.
Good stuff.
Really
Good
enjoyed it.
stuff. Yep, that was my point. The Borg's time is over for now. Let's go on to our final moment, our big moment from the episode.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
All right, so we've talked about mostly the big battle over at the Borg, over the Borg cube. Where's our big moments going? John, what's your big moment from the episode?
Well, I'm taking us to another place in the Sol system with the battle over Earth. I really enjoyed this. I was really pleased that 7 of 9 and Raffi, who were back on and remained back on the Titan, got their moment. I think I kind of really just loved 7 of 9's rallying cry as effectively the ship's cook is being put in the helmsman's chair, that we are all that's left of Starfleet. And that cook also is a pretty good helmsman, because when it panned back, not only does he make a fine lasagna, or does he?
Maybe.
Does he just maintain the replicators? He is also a pretty damn fine. I could imagine him sort of sprinkling some seasoning as he went past all the other ships. But I love this. I loved how they came up with the cloaking device to break that line of sight propagation in order to sort of break the formation technology and the synchronicity. And I loved them coming in and out, and then just all the laser spread fire going off from around the disc of the Titan.
Phasers everywhere.
And a few torpedoes. Because, I mean, it was that rallying cry of 7 of 9, we need to buy Picard and everyone else time, then effectively they are setting themselves against the rest of Starfleet. And I was like, what? And I thought it was really, really cool. I mean, completely over the top. I mean, that moment where you see the space station above Earth, the space dock, which provides that planetary shield, and the number of phaser fire being directed at it, and seeing the torpedoes being fired from all those ships, I was like, that space station has got some pretty tough shields. I mean, I guess it has to, because it is a single point of defense and provides the whole planetary shield.
Yes,
but
exactly.
I was just like, oh my goodness. I loved all the way through this as well, where it comes back to the Borg cube and you see Jack just relaying the orders. There's some really...
that was the cool
Yeah, like he talks to... Like, I think at one moment, I think when the cloak is taken down, I mean, this is how I interpreted it. As the cloak is taken down by the Borg crew aboard the Titan, and effectively... 7 of 9 is saying, you know, we're effectively dead in the water. And you see all, you know, a number of Starfleet ships starting to surround the Titan, and it cuts back to Jack, and it felt as though, you know, he was directing the ships as it cuts back to him around the Titan. You know, you just hear him saying fire, fire, fire. And then, of course, with the space dock exploding, you hear him just say target lock for all these different cities.
Didn't hear Dublin in there. I think we're grand lads.
You know, so well,
we're
exactly.
a capital city. It's every other capital city I could think of in the world, but not Dublin. We're fine.
We're at that time in the future. We are no longer around. We are an island under the water.
Oh, Chris, way to take that glass half empty approach.
But so I really enjoyed that.
Target lock London, target lock Berlin. Don't target Dublin. Target lock New York. It's fine.
So I thought it was really cool, all of this.
Absolutely. I even loved their brand new invention, how they get all of the new Borg off the bridge, where they've invented transporter guns.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
As that. I feel like I've seen that in not in Portal, but I feel like I've seen that in maybe Ratchet and Clank, a transporter gun where you can shoot it and somebody gets transported to a different location. But well done to them, and I like that. Since they've only just invented it, they're really nervous that they may have just transported the crew off the ship. So they have to go and check and make sure they've all been sent to the transporter room where they're supposed to go. So very cool. How do you think 7 copes as a captain? Do you like her as a captain?
Oh, absolutely. She can give the speech. She has the strategy. She utilizes, you know,
good motivation.
All her crew. You know, she's utilizing Raffi for the intel, and you can, you know, she's utilizing the cook to fly the ship.
Absolutely.
You know, she's making the best of what she's got.
Tools are available. Yep.
I really, really enjoyed this. It did feel the David and Goliath type of thing.
Always
and I kind of really enjoyed this battle above Earth. But that just the opening of all the phases attacking the space dock, I was just like, whoa.
Absolutely.
Okay. And just seeing Jack being the voice, relaying all the orders as well. I think the only thing was, I just wondered, you know, probably just the editing, and it's probably not in sequence, but it just felt slightly out of sequence with the explosion of the beacon on the Borg ship, as well as Jack effectively ripping himself out from the system.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until you see the cube blowing up,
exactly,
that then, and the Queen effectively dying, that then the Borg effect on these assimilated younger crew members begins to kind of peel away. And I just kind of thought that would go with the destruction of the beacon, because it's about transmitting it.
I don't think it is. I think the beacon's transmitting orders to them, but they're all connected to the Borg Queen. They've all become the new collective. So it's only when the Borg Queen goes that they're removed from the collective. But they can no longer hear Jack's orders when he comes out and when the beacon...
That also makes sense as well in terms of the Borg collective, So
I felt like there were the message that he was effectively rolling over and over again was execute anyone that isn't Borg. So they didn't need to hear that over and over again. It's not like that's what I thought anyway. So the beacon stopped. That's fine. They can no longer hear any new orders, but they've got one in mind. And then when the Borg Queen dies, they're severed from the collective.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought happened.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I absolutely adored the fight scenes in this show. That was in particular this episode. They didn't phone it in. And I don't mean that in any way derogatory against any other show. It's just like they could have just even the angles they chose when they animated this, they could have just focused in on one. So constantly we had multiple ships on screen at multiple times.
Yep.
Across this season, in particular this end as well. So you saw and I've been seeing across the previous weeks, and people are clipping out different parts of this and like, oh, here's the USS X. Like, can you believe this detail? Here's this USS.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to see this across this episode. Oh my God, did you see that they hit the X with this extra photon or blah, blah, blah. Again, the wording is going to be the interesting part, but what people pull from these scenes.
Absolutely.
But it looked beautiful. The flybys, and again, we talked about the carpet bombing by Crusher earlier. That by itself is spectacular. You crank it up even further today in this scene where you see like hundreds of ships firing upon the space station and then going after this one tiny ship in the front. You're like, oh yeah. And again, the cloaking technology looked fantastic. But that is the end of that.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I really enjoyed that. And you can see the detail in some of the ships that maybe the taking over of the ship hadn't gone so well, and you see them kind of falling out of the sky going towards Earth. I thought that was quite interesting because it's not all as focused as it had been when they were all collectively together. I thought those little touches that were there. It's interesting, and maybe we'll give a little call back to a moment back in, I think it was season 2 of Picard, where we had the cavalry arriving and a cavalry of a fleet from Starfleet, and every ship looked exactly the same, and lots of criticism of that. Where a lot of fans kind of said they weren't really putting in the work that they would have expected from Star Trek. So they certainly put in the work this season, where we have very distinctive looking ships here. This does not look like a sea of the same ship copy and pasted multiple times, which I know, in fairness to the actual people behind Picard season 2, I know it's not that simple. I know they did a hell of a lot of work, but they got a lot of criticism from fans who were never satisfied with anything. So they definitely looked at it in a different way for this scene, where we have hundreds of different types of ships all standing out, all different and all identifiable if you want to look close enough into them. So I'd say this is going to be very interesting. This is actually being shown in IMAX in the US, in 8 cities across the US, these 2 episodes back to back. The night before it premieres on Paramount Plus. So I'd be really intrigued to see what people's reaction to this massive scene is going to be like on the big screen.
No, absolutely.
We're really excited to see.
We're getting some hooting and hollering.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
And a lot of dead in the water starships, actually, as the Enterprise D comes back and you see it joining up with the Titan. Yeah. There is a lot of damage to Starfleet here as well.
Absolutely.
So I loved this battle over Earth. So that's my main point.
Excellent. We've already talked about it a little bit here, but my major point from the episode, because I just loved how this closes out the story of 7 of 9. At the end of this 3rd season, we saw her return in the 1st season, being on the outs. We saw her in the 2nd season working with the Fenris Rangers, not wanting to be in Starfleet. And this season, we see her starting the season having rejoined Starfleet, having joined Starfleet for the first time, actually. And now we see her finally getting the commission of captain from her former teammate Tuvok, who we learn is safe and sound.
Yes.
You know, that didn't pan out for me exactly as I was expecting it to, but they did drop a line which said exactly what I said would happen, that everybody that was replaced by a changeling would be found somewhere. And Picard says everybody from the higher officers to the lowest of officers that were replaced were all found. So I would have liked to see it in some way. If you wanted to get in some extra cameos for the final episode, you could have gone, Janeway was replaced. Here she was, safe and sound with Tuvok. If you only had her on set for half an hour to do a quick cameo, you could have done it that way. But at least we got a great moment with Tim Russ here coming back as the real Tuvok and able to give, I guess, his closest compatriot aboard Voyager her captain commission, and being able to deny her from leaving and giving in her resignation from Starfleet. So I thought that was great. I really, really enjoyed the scene. The fact that it connected back to Sean, what his actual feelings about her were, that she doesn't just go by the rule book like he does. And I love that he admits it's really boring to go by the rule book. The rule book is really boring in Starfleet. so nice to have someone like her that will challenge it, and she will make a great leader. So look, there was some kindness behind all of that with Shaw, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
Definitely. I loved this. I thought it really built on just Shaw's actual handing over of command.
Exactly.
That, this wasn't a death throes sort of, not token offering, but almost that, because there's no alternative that you see here in this moment, that he had this recommendation in his log after her last evaluation. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that.
It's not just the 4 days before his death that it changed his mind about her. He knew that she was worthy of the job. Absolutely. And we do get this all playing out as the show ends. We get Captain Seven taking her seat aboard her new ship. And it has been renamed. We have a new Enterprises in town, since we just lost the Enterprise F, which we saw for about 3.5 seconds last episode. We have the Enterprise 1701G, looking very cool, all retooled, from the Titan, and with all of its crew, aboard, which is all of our cast from the season that we've watched so far. So, everybody that's left, of course. Yeah. Raffi in the number one chair.
Yeah.
An interesting,
was not expecting.
Yeah, an interesting relationship there between Captain and First Officer, which will hopefully be explored in a future series. And you kind of mentioned it earlier on, but yeah, Jack on board as special counsel on board. I guess the 20 years that he's only 20 himself. I guess the 10 years or so he spent running around the galaxy with Beverly Crusher gives him some special counsel.
Yeah, and I guess he's been fast-tracked. We hear that he's been fast-tracked through the program. Yeah. It's his first commission, effectively.
But not an ensign. Yeah. I do like Ensign LaForge already, having a bit of banter with Jack, saying that she doesn't really believe anything he says normally, so it doesn't follow what he says. So yeah, look, this is a good crew. I've really enjoyed seeing them. I know they've been smaller characters in a show much more focused on the Next Generation cast, of course, but I think we have a good lineup of people here that will make a very interesting show if we do get a spin-off of Star Trek Legacy in the future.
God, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I will watch this from day one.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like this is the perfect level. You've got some already relationship stuff going on with Raffi and Seven. Mm-hmm. You've got Borg with Seven, and the kind of xenophobia that we've already, like, they introduced just enough of everything that you would want. You've got the hint of some of these characters and what they're capable of and who they are. Mm-hmm. And you've set it up that they are now, we joked about the legacy. They are the legacy, literally, of the Enterprise. They are taking that. And as Jack says, sometimes names mean a hell of a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've potentially got the skills of Jack. Is he still able to do the red eye thing?
No. So they call this out very quickly, which is Crusher essentially is able to, or Admiral Crusher is able to remove the receiving Borg DNA and all the people who took so basically the receiving DNA from the people in the transporter. So we see it. But that again is a split. So technically, if some people haven't taken a transporter since to get pulled out, that DNA pulled out of them, he could probably maybe somewhat still
I
control them.
I was just wondering whether it was latently sort of residing there. You know, maybe Beverly decided not to put him through that or whatever. Who knows?
It's more about the receivers. Yeah, it's more about the other people that don't have it. But yes, they could absolutely use that if they have a 26 episode season for the first season.
Absolutely.
There's a way of turning him bad again.
But there's already, you know, there is a question mark, or there is some future event that could lead to that. You know, so you can just kind of taste how it's going to be exciting. You know, you've got the whole intel officer side of Raffi as well. Yeah. There's the potential relationship with Sidney LaForge and Jack.
Yeah.
And just getting to know, like, you know, Ensign Mura and just more about the crew of the new USS Enterprise.
Absolutely. Like Raffi even calls it out, doesn't she, that Starfleet have effectively given their brand new Enterprise to a thief, a criminal, and a fugitive on board, and that's the senior command crew of this ship. Love that. Thought that was really good. So that, again, if that's your tagline for Enterprise G coming next fall to Paramount Plus, hey, it might work for me.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And of course, her engage line, whatever that is, will be revealed. So, you know, a nice little moment there.
Yes.
That's clever. That is a very clever move.
Yeah.
Because again, they would have been, there's going to be forum posts and literally discussions on the social web for months about what she could say and what she will say until they decide. Definitely.
I feel like that's something that they did in Discovery with Michael Burnham when she finally became captain, that they made a really big deal about what it is she was going to say as her first command word. I feel like they've done it on one of the other Star Trek shows as well. So I thought it was kind of cool to have her have that, as I call it, the Captain America moment, where he never gets to say Avengers until the final moment in the big battle in Avengers Endgame. That's the first time he says Avengers Assemble. So it's kind of that moment where you're pulling the audience away from almost having her commit to her big moment. She knows it's important. We'll see it if we see the characters back in the future in their stories. So yes, big moment. Absolutely loved it. What a great arc Seven's had in this series. It's been a really interesting character to bring on board from episode 1 of Picard, season 1. I think the story has really felt like a Picard story and a Seven story, and her getting as much time throughout the series I thought was great. So yeah, excellent. What a capper.
Oh yeah, no, and I think we can all say that we want to see this show. So hopefully when we come back for our 10 Forward quiz wrap up, we will have confirmation. I don't think they'll wait that long. I'll hope that they'll kind of give us some news a couple of days after, maybe some point.
Well, potentially, because if this was done back to back with season 2, then it was done a while ago.
Yeah, it was done last year. Yeah.
So I think they'll hopefully have made their decisions and will announce
touch wood
pretty quick.
Absolutely. Well, since they just announced this week that we're getting a Section 31 movie starring Michelle Yeoh coming, production begins later this year. That's been in the fires for 5 years now. But they did make the announcement, so you never know. We may have a confirmation of that Star Trek Legacy show coming pretty soon. Good stuff. That's my point. Chris, how about yourself? What's your big moment from the episode? Your big point from the episode?
So I'm going to wrap us up. I'm going to kind of go, like, everything is wrapped. We get this fitting, beautiful end to the Next Generation. And we've just talked about the new beginning, but we'll kind of finish that in a second. But the fitting end to the Next Generation, the actual cast and crew, they get their goodbyes, and everyone got a moment.
Yeah.
Everyone got a perfect moment, just tooled to either their current status within Picard. So, and be it through kind of Beverly kind of becoming an admiral again, coming back to Starfleet, being the one to bring Picard and kind of Jack to the Enterprise, to being the one who actually then became scientific department, who's the one rolling out the change to get rid of the Borg. All of these things, like Worf being the one to basically fix Raffi's family problem which I never would have guessed would have been that character doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great moment as well, wasn't it? Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that because remember that was the choice that she had to make during the season was either to pursue the conspiracy that she was investigating or to go back to her family. Ridiculous choice. But now they're proud of her and now she's going to finally get to see her granddaughter.
And it was even from before. So even like this cures some of that issues up to season 1 where she was a drug addict and recovering and things like that cures a lot of these narrative beats that have happened. So all of this plus Data doing a moment, getting a very Data moment where he's going through counseling with Troy and talking about getting angry about a cat, which is a callback to Spot. Like just this really great little moments.
Absolutely.
You see then
I love that Troy.
Diana.
I love that Troy's trying to book her holiday
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
during this
And then-
this counselling event. That's it's the third session, is it? I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
and it's
This
gone
week.
over an hour again, and he's going to go back the next day as well. Maybe being human is far as difficult as it was trying to be human. Yes, great.
And
point.
when Riker goes, "How are you?" "I'm okay."
Yes.
And you're like, yes, that's the ultimate Irish. Sure, I'm grand. It's
I'm
fine.
grand. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Everyone getting these beats, culminating in 10 forward, them slagging Guinan, and even just, she wasn't there though.
I know that's the one line that didn't work for me.
Yep.
Because we had everybody sitting around that table going, Guinan's giving us the side eye for the last half hour, and you go, well, just don't mention Guinan if you're not going to be able to show her in the episode. It just felt weird that they would mention it. Maybe they were hoping that Whoopi Goldberg could come back for 5 minutes to be on screen, but they didn't.
Or they were
bring
going
her
to
back.
digitally throw her in and they forgot.
But they did. maybe.
That one again, that was weird. But then having Picard saying his closing speech, which is the ultimate kind of thespian monologue speech out.
Yeah.
And then they finish with poker.
Absolutely.
Really
which was
good.
just, you don't even need to be a massive Next Generation fan to be happy with the poignancy of these friends coming together, sharing this final moment. You see them all. It looked like they were this was probably the last day of filming. And they were just all having a laugh back after years of being together and apart and now back together for one final. You get that sense from the wrap up. Overall, absolutely just poignantly well brought together and a fantastic end.
Absolutely.
And a new beginning. We talked about 7 and then you get Jack and Q.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Fab.
you do.
Post credits.
Loss.
Yes.
This I was not expecting.
Yes, John Delancey back in great form here after last season. Again, it's Q. We kind of thought there's a possibility, even though they're saying definitively that will not happen. We will not see him again. I do like that instantly he's going, stop thinking so linearly. He is an omnipotent being, of course. So of course he can come back and find a way to come back. Look, I prefer it this way. If you're going to bring Q back in this way, I kind of prefer that he's saying, as he does, being mischievous and saying, yes, Picard's trials are finished, but yours have just started. It's a nice setup if you're going to do another season. I did like it, even though it feels like it's kind of twisting on people that may have liked season 2 or had enjoyed Q's story. It feels like they're twisting it on them, but I think overall season 3 has been more successful and people will probably remember season 3 much more than what happened in season 2.
I thought this was great. I don't care. And, Q was one of the really great things about season 2 as well. And yes, he's right. He is by nature like Loki, the mischievous god, so him springing up and basically telling Jack, stop being so sort of blinkered and, well, I terrorized your father. I'm going to terrorize you now. I just thought it was really, really good. Yeah, I thought really good, and absolutely it's cemented for me that there will be a show. Like that as an end credit scene. effectively, yeah, I don't think you put that in if there's nowhere to go from it.
Yeah.
Even if we never see Q in the new show, it is just, there will be something else.
Yeah.
There will be another member of the Q that...
I think it's a good way, because you can literally open with a remake version of Farpoint. Again, for their first...
Yeah.
Literally, like, you could have it there for... They're knocked thousands of years because of Q, or light years, and it's that kind of interesting thing.
Yeah.
You have so many opportunities, and it's just a good new beginning with connections. And I think that's always the key when it comes to Star Trek, which is base it in some commonality. So with Voyager, with Star Trek Deep Space Nine, with each of the major shows, there is some sliver of connective tissue to Starfleet, to something. And yeah, you've got this here being with Jack, with the new crew, with Seven, with Raffi, building on. And then you got, do you know what? We're going to give them there a massive antagonist, because you've just got rid of the Borg.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just absolutely fantastic.
Really good. Yeah. Really good ending. Guys, I could probably talk about this episode for another hour, but since we're going on holiday, we're going to have to probably wrap it here. We will be back to talk about it more in a couple of weeks' time when we do our wrap-up episode for Star Trek Picard, Season 3 and all of Star Trek Picard. But I do want to make one note that I have from the episode, one little Easter egg that's there at the beginning of the episode. I know most people probably recognize what it was, but I did want to call it out. I thought it was a nice touch where we had President Anton Chekhov opening up the episode, calling for aid. Seems to be the son of Pavel Chekhov being on the original Enterprise from Star Trek, but the first name Anton seems to be a reference to Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the J.J. Abrams movies and sadly passed away at a very young age. So I thought the reference was really good. I thought it was done really well, and the connection that's there, like everything that's been done on the show, is really well observed. So good Easter egg. Well done.
Yes, definitely.
100%.
Anything else about the episode, guy? Any other notes that you have?
No, nothing from me.
Nope.
Right. Well, overall then, what did you think of the finale of Star Trek Picard, The Last Generation? John?
I absolutely loved this episode. I'd give it 5 oh happy days out of 5.
Fantastic.
I just absolutely loved the Next Generation crew just coming together to save the planet, to save the solar system from the Borg. It just had real meaning. In a sense, actually, I'm not even, last week I was wondering, will they bring the changelings back? They didn't really, they just focused on the Borg, and I can see that made reference to the alliance that they had made, which we don't need to know anything of. And
made reference to the fact that Beverly had put something into the transporters that if there's a changeling now, they'll get caught.
So I really enjoyed seeing this crew working. I love seeing Raffi and 7 of 9 working. I just loved how it really played on the fandom, the nostalgia for these great characters and really good actors, did it in a meaningful way, and just interwove effectively, potentially the forward look of a legacy with 7 of 9 and Raffi battling above Earth, but that final scene, I just thought it was really so well done. I thought most of the quotes could have done 101 small points that were just really meaningful between the crew of the Enterprise. And so, yeah, absolutely loved this. Great to see Q in there for a few seconds in the end credits scene. So, for me, 5 oh happy days out of 5. Really, really enjoyed this.
Fantastic. Chris, how about yourself? What's your final thoughts?
I'm going to save a lot of them for our wrap up because I want to talk about the series as a whole. Okay. But for a finale as a single entity, it was fantastic. It was really, really good. Playing on nostalgia, well written, leaning heavy into the strength of each of the actors. Yeah. And the dialogue separately, and then bringing it to be something that's better than the sum of its parts. Yeah. So absolutely just fantastic. Really enjoyed this, and sad to see it go. Maybe it's not anymore, but we'll see. We'll see when they announce what they announce. But overall, just absolutely loved this finale. Derek, yourself, what did you think of this finale?
I thought this was fantastic. The balance between what each of the characters got to do in this episode is something that I really thought was fantastically managed. Everybody gets a moment. Everybody gets something that plays to their strengths. Everybody gets either a comedy moment or a very serious moment. I thought it worked so well, and ending with the legacy of what we could see from a new cast in the future. Some of the cast that we know really well, some that we don't know well. I think it was a great idea to do it that way. Some fantastic moments. Yeah, well done to Terry Matalas and the writing team for creating such a great story this season. Something brand new for Star Trek, where we've been able to enjoy the nostalgia and also enjoy a great science fiction story within this world. So fantastic job. So happy. I'm so pleased. I think if Deanna Troi is here, she would probably be going, "Why am I sensing enjoyment at this moment?"
Yes.
So yes, good stuff. I think after that, let's all end exactly where the crew of the Enterprise ended. Let's go to 10 forward.
Absolutely. Yes, fellow quizzers, fellow Trekkies, welcome to the final 10 forward pub quiz. It is, of course, question 10.
The final question in the final 10 forward pub quiz.
The final frontier question. Indeed.
You got there before me, damn it.
So, here we go, fellow quizzers and Trekkies. Question 10. What 2 words do Klingons never admit to knowing?
Very good. Another great
good
line
one.
from the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
John, one more time.
What 2 words do Klingons never admit to knowing?
Fantastic. That's 10 questions. Your chance to get your hands on some Picard goodies. All you need to do is get the 10 answers, email them into us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com before the 5th of May. That's our closing date for this pub quiz. If you have missed any of the questions, all you need to do is pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. There is a pub quiz button at the top of the screen, and it'll give you all 10 questions for the pub quiz. And we'd love to see all your answers in for all those questions. Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us for this journey with Star Trek Picard Season 3. Really has been so much fun. We do hope you come back and join us for one of the other shows that we'll be covering. Cover many, many shows on TV Podcast Industries. Lots more to come this year on the main feed. Just again, go to the website and you can find loads of ways to subscribe to us.
Yes, and make sure you send us your feedback to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. So your thoughts on this season as a whole. What did you think? Let us know, or you can head on over to facebook.com/group/TV Podcast Industries, and you can leave us your thoughts on this final episode and the season, and we'll read it out in our wrap up.
Excellent stuff. Yes, as Derek mentioned before, we're going on a little bit of a break, but we will be back in May with the wrap up, as we have said, and of course the 10 forward pub quiz answers.
Absolutely. I think the next thing we're doing, brand new after that, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which comes out the weekend we return. And then, of course, we have another show which features people taking the appearance of other people, with Secret Invasion from Marvel coming from June 21st on Disney+.
Yes.
Excellent. It's going to be good. But who can we trust?
Exactly. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Yes, bye-bye, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, keep watching, keep listening, and keep trekking.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.